Hello everybody, welcome to this DALI Connectivity webinar. Today is Wednesday the 7th of July. So before we start, just a few points of housekeeping. Presentations will last 40 to 45 minutes. That will be followed by a question and answer session. Please type your questions into the question and answer box or Q&A box on your screen. The presentation materials and a webinar recording will be available after the event from our website. And we'll also provide written answers to all of the questions that you pose. There'll be two sessions. I will give a brief introduction to DALI, the DALI Alliance and some of the key features, followed by Scott Wade, Technical and Certification Manager of the DALI Alliance, who will take you in depth into DALI and Connectivity, choice and flexibility with DALI Plus and Wireless Gateways. And then after that, there will be as I mentioned, a question and answer session. So please type your questions into the Q&A box as we go along, as you think of them. So I'm going to kick us off. I'm Paul Drosin. I'm the General Manager of the DALI Alliance. And as I said, I'll give you this brief introduction to DALI and the Alliance. So first up, our new identity, the DALI Alliance. That explains that we're the global industry organization for DALI. We're also known as the Digital Illumination Interface Alliance, or DIIA. You might see those names or logos crop up from time to time, but we're more widely known as the DALI Alliance. So, as I say, the contents are introduction to DALI, the DALI Alliance, the organization, DALI in the market, trademarks and logos, a brief introduction to D4I and also Zaga D4I, a quick overview of what DALI can do. Then I'll talk very shortly about DALI for connectivity and IoT, and that will lead us very nicely then into Scott's part of the presentation. So DALI 2, Smart Digital Lighting Control. DALI is Digital Addressable Lighting Interface, an established protocol or language for bidirectional digital communication for lighting control devices. Technically managed in the open global standard IEC 62386 with a rich feature set dedicated to lighting. DALI 2 is the certification program based on the latest version of the DALI protocol. That's driven by the DALI Alliance, ensuring interoperability through testing and certification with trademark use. And those trademarks are DALI, DALI 2, D4I, and DALI Plus, all owned by the DALI Alliance, and that's words and logos. So, quick introduction to the DALI Alliance. The Alliance is an open global consortium of lighting companies that aims to grow the market for lighting control solutions based on DALI, also known as DIA, or Digital Illumination Interface Alliance, as I mentioned. We have more than 290 members worldwide, and that's continuing to grow rapidly. And those are the industry leaders in lighting and controls. Membership allows certification or registration of products, with over 1,800 DALI 2 certified products and over 1,400 DALI version 1 registered products. And it's clear to see that the market has a strong preference for certified interoperable. Membership allows trademark use. And there's a nice graphical slide which represents that more clearly. And you can see that our membership growth over the last 2 years alone has been increased by over 53%. And in the same period, certified products have increased by over 300%, which, as I mentioned, is a clear indication that the market favors certified interoperability. Talking about the DALI market, we have a very large installed base of projects, spanning more than 3 decades. And you can see a showcase of those both in the DALI Awards section of our website, which showcases the DALI Awards, which we launched last year, and the winners were announced early this year. And there's also a good selection of projects on the projects page. Some recent major infrastructure projects, for example, Crossrail in London, which is one of the world's largest infrastructure projects, Mass Transit Authority in New York City, Manchester Airport and Beijing Airport. Those are recent projects that have involved DALI. DALI is the largest wired digital open protocol in the world for lighting, according to Research Analyst. That's also been proclaimed that open protocols will be the growth winners over the next few years in smart lighting and connected controls. And my personal favorite, DALI is the largest segment for smart lighting, with 15% CAGR expected over the next 5 years. And that's according to a Global Smart Lighting Research report. So a quick introduction to D4i, or an overview of D4i. D4i is an extension of DALI 2 certification. D4i components have a compulsory set of features based on power supply and data specifications from DALI Alliance. All D4i LED drivers provide luminaire, energy and diagnostic data. And D4i enables DALI inside intelligent IoT-ready luminaires. It also simplifies the addition of sensors and communication devices to luminaires, thereby giving some future-proofing. And D4i enables plug-and-play interoperability when combined with a connector system such as Zaga Book 18 or Book 20, or NEMA ANSI C136.41. So Zaga's D4i certification, I mentioned the plug-and-play capability. So Zaga D4i is a joint certification based on complementary specifications, where Zaga, as you can see on the right-hand side there, specify mechanical interfaces, electrical pin assignment, electrical connectors, and they also reference the D4i specifications for power and control. And on the left-hand side, you see the play element, with the Zaga being the plug. So the play element, you see the functionality, the integrated bus power supply, the data, luminaire data, energy data, diagnostic data, specific part for luminaire mounted control devices, and the auxiliary power supply. And let's have a quick overview of what DALI can do. DALI is a digital control of light quality with intelligent feedback. It's interoperability, backed by rigorous testing and certification with trademark use. Precise, repeatable light output control and standardized dimming curve. Occupancy and light level sensing. Luminaire energy and diagnostic data, which is data for enhanced asset management and performance monitoring. Emergency lighting, enabling automated tests, some reporting, and also enabling emergency lighting to be on the same network, control network, as general lighting. Color control for human-centric lighting, enhanced comfort and well-being. And DALI is already positioned to participate in the Internet of Things with new specifications to enable DALI connectivity via wireless networks and IP-based networks, which we'll explore later in the presentation. So just thinking about DALI in an IoT world, how does this fit with a simple IoT definition? So IoT is a system of devices with unique identifiers, ability to transfer data over a network. DALI devices are individually addressable. Data exchange is inherent in DALI due to its bidirectional digital communication. And connectivity, multiple current and emerging options, including wireless, exist. So DALI is already positioned to participate in the Internet of Things. DALI in an IoT world, looking at connectivity. Current capabilities include multiple DALI subnets can be networked together for building-wide control. For example, a single application controller can control multiple DALI subnets. Several application controllers can be connected together via a backbone, for example, Ethernet-based. DALI systems can connect with other networks via non-standardized gateways, for example, to building management systems. And D4I facilitates the addition of wireless nodes or network lighting controllers to luminaires, so standalone luminaires can participate in remote lighting control networks. And emerging lighting DALI capabilities include DALI connectivity via wireless networks and DALI connectivity via IP-based networks. And that's the perfect opportunity for me to hand over to Scott to give part 2 of this presentation on DALI connectivity, choice and flexibility with DALI Plus and wireless gateways. Scott, over to you.
Okay, thanks very much, Paul. Okay, so I'm going to take you through the 2 new solutions that we've created. The first one is DALI Gateways, and we'll have a look at the architecture and the supported ecosystems. And then the second solution is DALI Plus. So again, we'll look at possible architectures, just some examples, the supported wireless carrier, and there's also a new trademark, DALI Plus itself, the word and the logo. And we'll have a quick look at developing products, so some guidance for those that are just starting to or considering starting developing products. So what parts of the standard you need, then testing that needs to be done, and certifying. And then finally, once you've certified, where do you find the products? So first of all, the 2 new solutions for DALI connectivity. These are 2 very different solutions, so they're appropriate to different applications, and they allow wireless connectivity in a way that's been proposed by our members. So we've got different wireless carriers or protocols that are supported by our members. So 2 different ways of working, and we'll look at those on further slides. And they cover the various lighting applications that were considered by our members to be the priority for enabling standardized wireless connectivity. And the next slide will show 2 solutions, just examples of the 2 solutions, but in a graphic form. So on the left, you'll see the DALI Gateway solution, and that allows existing DALI wired products to be used in a non-DALI wireless ecosystem. So when we say ecosystem, we mean a system such as Bluetooth Mesh or Zigbee. So that first solution for gateways allows those existing DALI wired products to be used with that ecosystem as if they're part of it. The second solution will be shown on the right side of the next slide. And that's where devices communicate using existing DALI commands carried over a wireless medium or a wireless carrier. Could even be other wired solutions in the future. And this is DALI Plus. So just to be clear again, these are 2 different solutions. So gateways, first of all, you've got the existing wireless ecosystem. And here we've got 2 examples, Zigbee and a Bluetooth Mesh. So 2 mesh systems with those native devices. In the top one, Zigbee devices, and the bottom one, the Bluetooth Mesh devices. Then we've got our new gateway. So one of the products in the mesh, at least one. So in this example, we've just shown one. So it's following our new gateway specification. And that gateway has 2 connectivity components, the wireless side and the DALI wired side. So that's the DALI bus coming out. So there are 2 solutions within the gateway solution, if you like. So the Zigbee and the Bluetooth Mesh. Now, DALI Plus is a completely different solution from the gateways. In this, all of the devices here are DALI Plus. They're all forming this wireless mesh. And in our first version, these will use Thread. So it's DALI Plus with Thread. So each of these devices is a DALI Plus with Thread device. This can be part of a larger Thread network, so you can have other Thread devices in here as well. And these are all communicating directly with each other using DALI commands. All the commands that have already been defined for all the different parts of the standard. Okay, so two different solutions. Let's have a look at the gateways in more detail. So gateways translate between DALI and a wireless protocol. And you can see the wireless mesh network, which is shown with just a few devices with our gateway. Now the gateway kind of splits in the middle. On the left side of it, we've shown the wireless connectivity, and on the right, it's got the DALI connectivity. Now initial support is for Bluetooth mesh lighting and Zigbee lighting. So this wireless network could be either of those. So the gateway will be designed for one of those or the other. It may be possible to have gateways that can be switched between Bluetooth mesh or Zigbee. On the right, we've got the connector for the DALI wired bus, and that just connects to any wired DALI system. It could be DALI 2 or D4i devices, could be luminaires or a single luminaire, could even be a larger subnet of products, of DALI products. Inside the gateway, there's an application controller. That's what's talking to the DALI devices here. So we'll have a look at some examples of the gateway in use. So in this one, on the DALI side, we've got a DALI 2 wired subnet. So the devices could be, so we've got a single DALI bus with the devices which could be luminaires with control gear, and we could have sensors. So you can have the usual DALI components. There has to be a bus power supply as well. It may be built into the gateway, or it may be elsewhere on the network. Just the usual rules apply. So this is just an existing DALI network, and the gateway enables control of these DALI devices from the ecosystem. So any device in the ecosystem is able to decide to set the DALI lighting level to a particular output, maybe 50%, 60%. It can also start fades. Also, some information is available, and we'll have a look at that later. So the second example here shows the gateway again, same gateway and same ecosystem, but this time on the DALI side of the gateway, we have a single luminaire. So it may be a D4i luminaire where the gateway actually just is mounted maybe on the top of the luminaire, and it's providing the wireless connectivity, but also connects to the DALI bus inside the luminaire with the LED drivers and possibly a sensor, which might just be operating locally for this luminaire. Although D4i is shown here, this works equally well for DALI 2 luminaires. Of course, you have to ensure there's DALI bus power. So D4i, that's part of the specification. The DALI bus in a D4i luminaire already has power. With DALI 2, you have to check that it is powered. Either add a bus power supply or choose DALI 2 components with a bus power supply included. So an overview of what the gateways do. So they allow existing wireless ecosystems to control and query the DALI control gear. So the wireless devices, so that's the ecosystem, Bluetooth mesh or Zigbee, they communicate using their existing protocol, and they can talk with the gateway, just as if the gateway is one of the ecosystem components, which actually it is. It is just a Bluetooth mesh or a Zigbee component. And the gateway provides the wired DALI connection, and the specification requires it to support at least 4 DALI control gear in the same luminaire or in a system, and it provides broadcast control to those control gear. Now the wireless devices, so the Bluetooth mesh or the Zigbee devices, can control the light output and the fading of the DALI devices, just in the same way that they'd normally trigger a change of light level in the ecosystem. The wireless devices can also read certain information from the DALI control gear. So lamp failure information, control gear failure information as well, and also data from the 25X parts of the standard, 251 to 253. So this is luminaire data, energy and power, and diagnostics data. So the memory banks from these parts, much of that data is mapped through to the ecosystem, the Bluetooth mesh or the Zigbee ecosystem. And we've said quite a few times already, there are two wireless ecosystems supported initially, the Bluetooth mesh lighting model, and this is the part of the standard, the DIA specification, part 341. That describes the requirements for this Bluetooth mesh gateway. And the other one is the Zigbee gateway, and this is also in a new DIA specification, but part 342. So they're already available from the DIA website. Just go on to the website and click on the link to request those to be downloaded. So some particular features of the gateways. So lighting control, they provide broadcast control of the light output from the connected control gear. So that's the initial gateway specifications. They're broadcast control. They don't provide individual control at the moment. So if you have 3 or 4 luminaires or 3 or 4 LED drivers, the light level on all of those is controlled together. So if the ecosystem asks the gateway to send the lights to 50%, all of the lights will go to 50%. All of the lights hanging off of that gateway will go to 50% because it's broadcast control. Now the capability and limits of the ecosystem levels and fade times apply. The gateway doesn't restrict the operation to DALI fade times, for example. So if the ecosystem allows fade times of, let's say, 1 hour, that's what you get out of the connected DALI control gear. So the gateway does what it needs to do to create that fade time, that maybe very long fade time on the DALI devices. That's part of the standard. It's the same with the levels. So although internally DALI uses levels 0 to 254, the levels of this ecosystem apply. So whatever the numbering system is for the ecosystem, that's used, and it translates to the equivalent level on the DALI side. For data, the gateways provide the ecosystem devices with access to much of the data from these parts, the 251, 252, and 253. So the luminaire data, energy and power, and diagnostics data. Much of that content is made available to the ecosystem devices. And also, there's common control gear information, such as the missing or failure status of control gear, the lamp failure, and the light source type. So that's provided through the gateway to the ecosystem devices. Now, data is aggregated from the control gear, and it's presented to the ecosystem as a single set of data. So that means if you have, let's say, 4 LED drivers in a luminaire, the energy data from those 4 LED drivers is aggregated. It's added together and presented as a single energy value to the ecosystem. So the ecosystem sees that just as one data point, that energy value. It doesn't see the individual values from the 4 LED drivers in that example. In the future, we may allow the individual control and individual gathering of data. That's yet to be decided. Security, so gateways are subject to the requirements of the ecosystem. So this means all the usual security features of the wireless ecosystem apply. So Bluetooth Mesh and Zigbee already provide for all of that. There's nothing changed, nothing added or removed. It's everything that's in the ecosystem already applies. System limits. So the gateway will support collection of data from 4 control gear. That's the requirement we've already published in the standard. But manufacturers can design their gateways to optionally support more control gear. So that's a choice. They can support more if they want to from step 1. They will state that in the datasheet. In the first version, the level commands are broadcast to all control gear, as I mentioned earlier, and the usual rules apply for bus power. And it's quite likely many gateways will have a DALI bus power supply integrated, avoiding the need for an external bus power supply, or they may be D4I types where they get their power from the luminaire. So they're probably the 2 most common cases we will start to see. Future additions under consideration. So individual addressing and control of the connected control gear. So initially we've got broadcasting, but it's likely we'll allow individual addressing in the future, and support for input devices is another possibility. So this is where the event messages or polled information from the input devices is made available to the ecosystem. So today you can use an input device on the DALI side, like an occupancy sensor or a light sensor, but that would operate locally. So it would control the DALI lights on that DALI system, but that information is not, there's no standardized way for that to go through to the ecosystem at the moment anyway. Also, specific features of control gear device types may be added. For example, those described in these parts, 202, 207, and 209. So these are device types 1, 6, and 8. So self-contained emergency, LED drivers, and color controllable drivers. These parts of the standard have specific features. For example, color control allows different color types. The gateway doesn't yet support those. There's no standardized way to control color through the gateway just now. That's something that we are considering adding later. And also support for other wireless ecosystems may be considered if that's something our members request, if there's enough desire for that. Tests for the gateways are under development. That's already started. And gateways implement at least these parts of the standard, 101 and 103, as well as one of these, at least one of these 2 specifications, part 341 or 342. So a Bluetooth mesh gateway would implement 101, 103, and 341, all of those. And everything that's implemented, as usual, must be tested before it can be certified. Okay, so that was the gateways. Now we're going to look at the DALI Plus solution. And initially, it's DALI Plus with Thread. That's the first specification that we've published. So in this solution, the entire DALI Plus system communicates using the existing DALI language. All the communications here uses DALI. And commands are efficiently packaged into frames. Now those commands in those frames are transported using the wireless carrier, and Thread is supported initially. DALI Plus devices, as you can see here, these can be DALI control gear and control devices from IEC 62386, so all the different types of control gear and control devices described in the standard can be implemented in DALI Plus. Examples include LED drivers, color controllable drivers, emergency drivers, application controllers, push buttons, and the different types of sensors. So all of those devices can be implemented as a DALI Plus device. Also, so that's the existing types of devices, but we have added a new type, which is a bridge device. So a DALI Plus bridge allows application controllers in the DALI Plus system to control, configure, and query devices in the DALI wired system. So the bridge is connecting or bridging from DALI Plus to DALI wired. And we'll have a look at that later. Now, connection to other systems, just like standard DALI, is also possible with DALI Plus. For example, connection to a BMS system through a building management system could be through a BACnet interface or something else. So you could have a DALI Plus device which can have this other interface, just in the same way that DALI devices today can have other interfaces to a BMS system. Additionally, you could have a backbone to connect multiple DALI Plus systems together, for example, through Ethernet. So just like today, you can have DALI systems with one of the devices might have an Ethernet connection to a backbone, which connects to other DALI subnets or maybe other DALI application controllers providing other DALI subnets. You can do that today. You can do that with DALI Plus as well through the backbone. So Ethernet is quite popular as a backbone. Also, multiple subnets can be supported. So you can have, just the same as with a DALI wired system, an application controller might support multiple subnets. And these can be any combination, not just DALI Plus subnets. They could be DALI Plus and wired DALI subnets. So here's an example. This application controller, actually it looks like 3 application controllers. It's one product which has a DALI Plus subnet or system here, and it has 2 DALI wired subnets shown there. So it's effectively got 3 systems connected to it. 2 of them happen to be DALI wired systems and 1 is a DALI Plus system. So that was already possible with DALI wired, but obviously they were all wired subnets. You can do the same thing with DALI Plus. And the bridges. So this shows an example, and the DALI Plus bridges allow 1 or more wired DALI subnets to be controlled or accessed from a DALI Plus system. So the application controllers in the DALI Plus network can control, configure, and query the DALI wired devices. All types of DALI wired control gear and control devices are supported. And just as an example, you might have a luminaire containing a DALI bridge, a DALI Plus bridge, and the DALI wired devices, which might be LED drivers and a sensor. And the bridge is enabling the DALI Plus system, or the devices in there, to control the DALI wired devices. Not just control, it can also configure them, it can query them, and it also allows events from, in this example, a sensor, events in this wired system, so maybe the light sensor or occupancy sensor, they will be transported through the bridge into the DALI Plus system. And so application controllers in here can make use of those events. Maybe it's a movement event from an occupancy sensor, which could trigger the lights to turn on in part of the DALI Plus system. Or it could, the application controller might decide it only operates locally. So it's flexible just by the usual rules for application controller design. Now, Thread is the first wireless carrier that will be used for DALI Plus devices. That's already in the published specification. And Thread is a wireless protocol transporting IPv6 packets using the low power wireless technology 6LoWPAN, which is an 802.15.4 based protocol itself. So very efficient, very low power. Also, other Thread devices may be used in the same Thread network as the DALI Plus devices. So although I've shown DALI Plus devices here, you could have other Thread devices. Maybe that one in the corner is some other Thread device. You could have multiple other Thread devices for other applications, maybe non-lighting applications in the same network. Also, you can have Thread border routers. and they allow connection through other IP-based physical layers, for example, Ethernet or Wi-Fi. So in this thread border router, I've shown the Ethernet connection. Could be to PCs, for example, that are then able to access the lighting network. Could be other border routers to other thread networks which have DALI Plus devices. So you could have multiple thread DALI Plus with thread networks joined together through Ethernet via the thread border routers. This makes it highly scalable. So as you can see, you can have lots of these connected through Ethernet, and Ethernet is enormously scalable, especially since this is IPv6. It's virtually unlimited number of nodes. Okay, so a summary of DALI Plus. Devices communicate using existing DALI commands arranged into frames that are carried over a wireless medium. And there is no wired DALI bus, so that's not necessary. Now, of course, you can still have it by using a bridge. So if you want to connect some DALI wired products, add a bridge device. Each device implements this part of the standard. So part 104 is the wireless part of the standard, as well as the additions and changes that we've published. So you'll find there's a DIA specification that describes additions and changes to this. But you also need other parts of the standard for the type of product you're developing. For example, if it's a DALI Plus color controllable LED driver, it implements all of these parts of IEC 62386, the base parts, 101 and 102 for control gear, 104 for wireless, 207 for LED, 209 is the color control part, as well as the additions and clarifications from DIA. So that's the different parts of the standard. Bridges were introduced, the bridge devices, which allow access to DALI wired luminaires or subnets from the DALI Plus subnet. And Thread will be the first wireless carrier that is supported in our testing and certification. So we've published the specification, which includes Thread and other IP-based methods. The tests that we'll develop first or are under development are for Thread. In the future, there may be other IP-based carriers supported, and also Bluetooth Mesh may also be supported as the carrier. Now, with Thread for DALI Plus, then you've got the border routers that can be added. There's nothing extra to do. You can use any border router that they exist already, and they allow the DALI Plus communications to go through other IP-capable media, such as Ethernet or Wi-Fi. And you saw that in the earlier example. So those thread border routers exist now. You don't need to combine them with DALI Plus. In the future, DALI Plus is likely to be extended to include other carriers, as I mentioned. So maybe Bluetooth Mesh, Ethernet, Wi-Fi, and possibly others. Security is provided by the authentication and encryption methods that are already part of Thread, with CoAP-S, the secure method, providing further application level security and reliability. So, of course, wireless has some inherent unreliability, which there are mechanisms built into the various protocols, including Thread and CoAP-S and our protocol, our extensions, to ensure reliable delivery of the packets. This is just a nice graphic showing a possible wireless mesh, DALI Plus wireless mesh, with lots of different products, which shows you can have push buttons and sensors, different types of drivers, bridges to a DALI wired system, application controllers with backbones, maybe through Ethernet, carrying TCP/IP traffic to other application controllers, extending to further networks of wired and wireless systems. This is just an example. There are no DALI Plus products available today. That won't be possible until testing and certification starts. So just some hints for developers and test engineers to get started. So you first have to use the standards from IEC and DIIA, and we have a web page that lists them all. In addition, check the clarifications document that we publish, and you can find the documents. All members can go there to find these documents. It describes many clarifications, changes, and additions to quite a lot of the IEC 62386 parts. So we're quite fast in DIIA at finding issues and reporting them for our members in this document. And we then feed them back to IEC, but it takes some time for the published standards to be updated. Now for the gateways, as well as the relevant parts of the standard from IEC and DIIA, you also need at least one of these two new specifications, part 341 or 342 for the particular gateway specification. And for DALI Plus, you will use part 104 of the standard together with the changes and additions that we've published as a DIIA specification. So that's also downloadable from the DIIA website. Now, just a reminder, please develop your product to meet the specifications, not simply to pass the tests. It's always best to meet the specifications because the tests will change and often be expanded in the future. Just to show you the tests, actually there's a web page here for test sequences. You can see what's the latest version and you can download them there. Also, we publish known issues on that page. And the next release of tests is expected to be made in just a few weeks, and it will include these three parts: self-contained emergency, the converter, that's the 1 to 10 volt or 0 to 10 volt converter to DC voltage, and two new color types in the color control part. So the RGB WAF and the XY chromaticity color types. We have got other tests in progress as well, but they won't be in the August release. 205 will probably be held back, and we've got 332 in progress, and of course all the wireless tests. Now the wireless tests aren't expected to be ready until next year. Now once tests are released, certification will start, and for gateways that will allow DALI 2 or D4I certification, and for DALI Plus devices it's the DALI Plus certification and this trademark. And a reminder, only products listed as certified in the database can use those appropriate trademarks. So you can't use the DALI Plus trademark today because there are no DALI Plus certified products. And for gateways, you will need part 341 or 342 implemented to get certification. Once the products are in the database, you can search and filter your search quite easily. So go to this link for the product database, use the search filter. Just as an example, I know this is too small to read on the right, but as an example, you could filter to show all control gear, filter it down to color control gear only, and actually filter color control gear down to only the tunable white color type, the TC color type, if that's all you're interested in, and then hit search, and it only shows those in the search results. Searching for DALI Gateways and DALI Plus will be included once certification starts. You won't find those in the search filters today because there are no products. Okay, so that was a quick run through of DALI connectivity solutions for DALI Gateways and the DALI Plus solution. These are actually links, so if you download the PDF from the website later, you'll be able to link through to our pages. Coming soon, technical guides for both of these. They will be published in the next few weeks, and later this year, the DALI Lighting Awards. Contact us through this web page if you have any inquiries. And now Tim's going to explain the Q&A session, which starts now.
Thanks, Scott and Paul. Nice presentations. We do have quite a few questions that came in. If you have any further questions, please ask them via the Q&A function. And let's get started. So if I take you back to gateways, Scott, you won't be surprised to hear that most of the questions are more technically based. So Scott, you're probably the qualified to answer. So let's start with this one. Why doesn't the wireless gateway approach support Thread?
So I think the main reason actually is our members haven't requested that, but secondary reasons, Thread, I don't believe has any application layers. There's no lighting application on Thread defined. So there would be no lighting commands. There'd be no point in, well, you can't make a DALI device look like a Thread lighting device because there is no Thread lighting device. So it doesn't really make sense in that way.
Okay. Yeah. So again, for gateways, is it planned to add the support for addressed control of control gear in the future, not only broadcast?
Yes, I'm pretty sure we will be adding that. Just for speed, we limited it to broadcast control for the first step, just so we can get the first specification out. But yes, I'm pretty sure the members that are interested in gateways will add that. And if you're a member that's listening and you're interested, then please join the subgroup to take that further. I can't give a timescale just now, though.
There was a question about Kasambi, and it was related to whether a Kasambi DALI module would qualify as a type of gateway that we're standardizing.
So I can't comment on specific products from any of the lighting companies. Products that can pass our tests can then be certified. So they must pass the tests and they can then be certified. If they can't pass the tests, then it's not possible to be certified and then they cannot use the trademarks. And of course, all of the certified products can be found in the product database.
Okay, there were a number of very similar questions related to the limits of the number of devices on the DALI Plus subnet. How many nodes can be in a DALI Plus network?
Yeah, okay, that's a good question. So there depends on how you're addressing. There are several methods of addressing. The usual DALI control gear and control device addresses can be used. So you've got 64 plus 64. But also part 104 of the standard has a system address, which multiplies the DALI addresses by 255. So you've got an enormous number then. You've got almost 32,000 roughly. But also you can actually even avoid using DALI addressing and just use IP addressing in the case of Thread. You've got IPv6. And the addressing capability with IPv6 is virtually unlimited. For all practical purposes, it's unlimited. So DALI Plus systems really have no limit to the size they can be.
Okay, great. Will it be possible to communicate DALI 2 sensor events via DALI Plus?
So I assume you mean from the wired bus. So if it's a wired bus sensor, it would connect to a DALI Plus system through a bridge. And so the answer is yes, that bridge will transport the event messages from the sensor into the DALI Plus system. Of course, you can also make a DALI Plus sensor, so it's directly in the system. So a DALI Plus input device, its event messages are all used by any of the products in the DALI Plus system that want to use those event messages, or they can use polling if they want to. So yes, assuming it's wired, you would use a bridge, and that allows the sensor to be part of the DALI Plus system effectively.
Okay. Could we build a DALI Plus gateway using RS485 or KNX?
I'm not sure quite what the gateway is to. Maybe it means from DALI Plus to KNX or DALI Plus to RS485. So any conversion to those standards is out of scope. You can do that. You can do that today with an application controller. You can have an application controller in a DALI wired system or a DALI wireless system, DALI Plus, where that application controller has an RS485 or KNX interface and controls devices on those systems, or even allows control the other way. But that's out of scope of DALI. The functionality you provide there is decided by the manufacturer of that interface, that gateway product. But let's not call it a gateway, because these are standardized gateways. The functionality that in parts 341 and 342 is standardized. So anything else I would just call an interface. So if it's to RS485 or KNX, it's an interface. Maybe in the future, we'll have standardized gateways to those protocols. And if you're interested, please join the subgroup to create or extend the specifications for those. Okay.
Yep. This is a slightly longer question, but I think it's quite good. Can you have DALI Plus in one building, then wired through DALI wire to another building, where you also have DALI Plus, and then both buildings will be able to control devices in each building?
Right. DALI wired cannot be used as the bridge between two DALI Plus systems. So a DALI Plus application controller, let's call it on the left side, will not be able to control DALI Plus devices on a DALI Plus system on the right, where you've got a DALI wired in between. That doesn't quite make sense. There's certain things you could do with application controllers. First of all, you would need either application controllers or a bridge device to join those. But I think the way the question is intended, no, that's not going to give you a seamless link. If you want to join two DALI Plus systems, use Ethernet. So with Thread, you've got the border routers. Put it into Ethernet, connect it to the other building, back through a border router. There you go. You've got two DALI Plus systems joined by Ethernet. And then you can have it wherever your DALI wired components are, just hang them off of a bridge. Whether they're in one building or the other, you might have a bridge in each building if you've got DALI wired components in each building. Okay.
Great. When will DALI Plus be available for emergency control gear? And as a footnote, they wanted to also know when DALI 2 is available for emergency.
Well, the DALI 2 one's easier. Very, very soon. We're just finalizing the tests for that. So we thought we would have it the end of June. We didn't quite make it. Most likely it'll be into August now before we get the tests released. So they do include DALI 2 emergency tests. They are in there. For DALI Plus, we're really at the beginning of developing the part 104 tests, and there will be some modification to the existing tests for all the other parts of the standard that we need to make. We can't give exact timescales. I don't think we'll finish these. I don't think we'll have a releasable solution this year. Yes, we will have beta versions for our members to start trying out and test with their products. That'll come this year, but even quite soon, but not a releasable. I doubt we'll have a releasable version. And the exact order of DALI Plus for specific parts, I don't know. We'll probably get, well, I'm sure we'll get standard LED drivers and maybe some of the input devices first. Emergency, I don't know if that will be with the first release of DALI Plus tests. Best to check with us later this year. Towards the end of the year, we'll know better what the order will be. Okay.
Yep, good. There's a couple related to commissioning. How commissioning handled in DALI Plus? Is it standardized within DALI Plus?
So actually the same commissioning methods that you use with standard DALI can be used. Of course, there's an extra step that's in joining a thread device to a network. You've got that the keys to share for the devices so that they can actually join the thread network. But after that, it's down to our members how they want to provide commissioning of their systems. So the same methods, they might be remote controls, they might be PC-based applications, iPads or other tablets, phone-based tools. So all the existing possibilities still apply to DALI Plus. But none of those products exist yet. There are no DALI Plus products yet. But we need to look out for those once certification starts. Okay?
Yeah. Should a certified DALI Gateway or DALI Plus device also get certification from Zigbee Bluetooth Thread, depending on which one is applicable?
Yes, we have liaisons with all of these organizations, and we're working with their certification managers to decide exactly how to state this in the certification programs and in our requirements. So if you want to have DALI Plus with Thread on your product, yes, you will need the Thread certification as well. Or if it's Bluetooth Mesh or Zigbee Lighting, you will need the certification from those organizations. So yes, and we're working quite closely with them to decide how this will be done. Okay?
Yep. Is it enough to be an associate member of the DALI Alliance to have access to all the documents needed to implement DALI Plus over Thread, or do you have to be a regular member?
So our associate members get all of our published documents, all the documents that we have decided are ready for publication. So the specifications for these are all available already to associates and regular members. You will also need several IEC specifications according to the type of product. You can get those from IEC, from the web store, or from your national standards organization. We do not provide the IEC standards. Anything that's in progress in DIIA, so specifications we're developing, they're limited to regular members. So as we will be making some changes, some corrections to even these published specifications. Those changes and anything new that we add is available to the regular members that join our T&C work group. And they have the chance to review those and to contribute to those documents. Once the T&C work group and the board agrees that they're ready for publication, then all members get access. We publish them to all members. Okay.
Good. Yep. A couple going back to gateways. The DALI 2 gateway allows control in one direction from the wireless side to the wired side. It seems logical that one would want to send control commands via the gateway from wired DALI 2 to the wireless devices. Any plans to allow this control from the wired side?
No, not at the moment. So that's a good point. We've been asked about that once or twice before. If there's enough interest, then we'll consider a specification for that. But no, at the moment, the gateway provides control of the DALI devices from the ecosystem. So the ecosystem is in control of the whole system. The ecosystem is effectively the master, and the DALI system is subordinate to that in the gateway case.
Okay. During the presentation, you said there was no possibility to dissociate the energy data from a bunch of control drivers. Is it a limitation from the gateway itself or the protocol?
Yes, it's a gateway specification limitation just now. And at the moment, we specify that the data is aggregated. So that's part of the specification. In the future, we are likely to add this individual access. So DALI control gear will be addressed. Actually, today it needs to be addressed anyway, but when the gateway fetches the data back, it's in the future it'll probably make it available as different lighting models or device or virtual devices, you might say, on the ecosystem. So at the moment, for Bluetooth Mesh, it will look like one lighting device, one lighting model that's implemented, and it has that data. But in the future, we may allow multiple lighting models within that gateway product. So it looks like there's more than one lighting device in the Bluetooth Mesh system. But the gateway is just making it look like those. So if you had, let's say, 3 LED drivers, DALI LED drivers, in the future, the gateway might make those look like 3 separate Bluetooth lighting devices or Zigbee lighting devices, allowing access to the data separately and control separately. But that's not part of the specification yet. That's probably the primary requirement to add next. I think is probably the most requested requirement. Okay.
Okay, good. We do have a lot of questions. We're not going to be able to get through them all. I think what we should do is take a couple more now, and then our plan is that we will look at all the questions and try to provide written answers over the next week or so. So I apologize if your question doesn't get asked, but let's take 1 or 2 more, and then we will have gone over the hour mark, so I think that's a good time to stop. Okay, so Scott, a point of clarification. Does DALI Plus support DALI 2?
I'm not quite sure the meaning of the question, but a bridge device would require DALI Plus and DALI 2 certification, because it has both sides. It has a DALI Plus side and a DALI 2, the wired side. So it would get certification for both. But a native DALI Plus device, such as shown in the diagram here, that would only have DALI Plus certification. There's no DALI 2 certification required. It will follow all the tests for the implemented parts of the standard for DALI Plus. So if it's an LED driver, parts 101, 102, 104, because it's DALI Plus control gear, and then 207 because it's an LED driver. So yeah. I think that answers the question.
Yeah, I think it does. And another, along similar lines, a clarification, could you just briefly explain the difference between gateways, bridges, and interfaces?
Right, okay, so the gateways are the solution here that allows the ecosystem to control, so a Bluetooth or Zigbee ecosystem, to control some DALI wired devices. And these gateways are standardized in our 2 new specifications, one for Zigbee and the other for Bluetooth Mesh. So they're gateways. An interface is an informal term just now. If someone is creating a device that does this but to KNX or to RS-232 or RS-485, we don't have a standard specification for that. So it's best not to use the term gateway just now for those until we have a standard specification that tells you how to convert or transport or control from that system to the DALI system. And what was the other? Oh, bridges, I think, was the other term.
Yes.
So a bridge device is a DALI Plus device on one side and a DALI device or DALI 2 device on the other side. And it's allowing the DALI Plus system to access these DALI wired devices. I need to go back to the page with that. Yeah, so it's here. So where we've got the bridge, you've got a DALI wired system here. So it might be some standard LED drivers or sensors. The DALI Plus devices can send commands to these, let's say, the LED drivers and sensors across in the wired side. So they have full access to the wired devices. The DALI Plus devices are able to control the lighting, they can configure, and they can also query these wired devices. A bit like these devices were part of the system. But application controllers on this side, on the wired system, cannot get their commands. They cannot access devices through on this side. So if you've got an application controller here on the wired side, it cannot ask this DALI Plus device. It can't send it a query command and get an answer. That won't work. Input devices on this side do have their messages, their event messages sent through the bridge. So they're really the only forward frames that go through the bridge, the event messages from the wired side, I mean, to the wireless side. The other way, from DALI Plus through the bridge to wired, everything goes through. So all of the forward frames, the commands, the queries, even events, they can all go through the bridge to the wired side. Okay, I hope that explains it.
I think
also, have a look in the technical guides that are just about to be published. There's a technical guide for DALI Plus, which does show bridges as well. It will tell you more, or contact us later.
Yep. Good. Okay, I think that's a good point at which to stop. Thanks very much, Paul and Scott, for the presentations, and thanks, Scott, for answering all those questions. As I said, there were some questions that weren't answered, and we'll try to give written answers to all those questions in due course. Several people asked about the presentation materials. They will be available on the DALI Alliance website very soon, and we will also post a recording of this webinar as well. So it just remains for me to say thank you very much. Thanks for attending, and goodbye.
Thanks.